We are approaching the middle of 2019, so it's time to speculate for 2020 and beyond. In this video, I'm going to look at Cedar Fair and look at the last 25 years of coaster additions for each park and take a reasoned, educated guess at what their next coaster may be and when they'll get it. Cedar Fair is tough to guess because they don't clone their rides like Six Flags, but I'm going to give it my best shot. These are my predictions for the 11 major Cedar Fair parks. So we're going to kick this off with an easy one, Kings Island. If they don't get a B&M Giga in 2020 at this point, it'd be one of the biggest shockers of all time. We've seen the land clearing behind Racer, and we've even seen the leaked layout, so for argument's sake, this is happening. So let's move on to the next park. So how about Carowinds? They just got a new coaster in 2019, Copperhead Strike. The Cedar Fair seems to want to build this park up, and they've been doing so ever since they took it over in 2007. Copperhead Strike was a perfect addition because the park did not have a launch coaster. So what can they get that'll fill their next biggest gap? I'm going to say their next coaster will be a GCI wooden coaster very similar to Mystic Timbers, and given the 4 to 5 year spacing between coasters recently, I think this will come in 2023. Now they do have Hurler filling their wooden coaster gap now that Thunder Road is gone, but it's not a modern Woody like the kind that GCI can provide. The other Hurler at King's Dominion was RMC'd, which makes you think that this is in Carowinds' future also. But the truth is that Carowinds' Hurler has a lot better reception among riders than King's Dominion's Hurler ever did. So will Carowinds get the new Woody before or after RMCing Hurler? Since Hurler isn't that bad of a ride, I'm saying the Woody will come first and I'm aiming for 2023. Canada's Wonderland is the other park in the chain that got a major new coaster in 2019, Yukon Striker. This is another Cedar Fair park that's been adding coasters generally at a 4 to 5 year pace. And anyone who's been to Canada's Wonderland knows that this park has a ton of coasters, and about half of them are terrible. So what's the best way to get rid of one awful ride and add an elite one? In 2018, Cedar Fair started working with RMC when they converted Mean Streak to Steel Vengeance and Hurler to Twisted Timbers. And I think the next coaster coming to Canada's Wonderland will be an RMC conversion. They have two awesome candidates for the RMC treatment. Two equally awful wooden coasters in Mighty Canadian Mindbuster and Wild Beast, and honestly I can see either one getting RMC'd. Mindbuster has a longer out and back layout, while Wild Beast has a more compact layout that does a couple laps and a tighter footprint. RMC Mindbuster might look a little bit like Twisted Colossus, while RMC Wild Beast might look a little more like Wicked Cyclone. For this video, I'm going to go with Mindbuster, because it seems that Wild Beast land is more prime for them tearing it down and putting a better coaster in that plot. Mindbuster's location doesn't really look like it's a good spot for anything else, since it dives under parts of the water park. With the current pace of adding coasters to Canada's Wonderland, I'm projecting this will happen in 2023. Usually when a major attraction is removed, the park likes to replace it relatively quickly. Volcano the Blast coaster was a crowd favorite, and its removal leaves a big hole in King's Dominion's lineup, and it also leaves a big juicy plot of land for something new. Sure, King's Dominion went 8 years between coasters with Intimidator 305 in 2010 and Twisted Timbers in 2018, but I don't think that type of gap will happen again, especially with the removal of Volcano. Deciding what this park will add next was probably the hardest call of all the Cedar Fair parks, since the park has a good variety of coasters, and Busch Gardens Williamsburg is just an hour away, so it fills more gaps for the area. The natural fit for this park is an inverted coaster, but with Alpengeist nearby, that probably won't happen. The park could also use a dive coaster, but Griffin is also just an hour down the road. The park already has a pair of wooden coasters, so my official prediction for King's Dominion is that they'll get an infinity coaster, and that'll be on Volcano's old plot of land. I'm imagining something similar to Hang Time, with a beyond vertical drop and lots of inversions with just a lap bar. The park already does have a multi-looping coaster with Dominator, but this is different enough and it seems like a good fit for that plot of land. As for the timing, I think this will happen sooner rather than later, so I'm putting a 2021 date on it. Knott's Berry Farm received the infinity coaster that I'm predicting for King's Dominion, and it's been a big hit for the park. But what's next for this landlocked park? As far as coasters go, it took 5 years between Pony Express and Coast Rider, and 5 more years until Hang Time came along. Hang Time was a major new addition, unlike the family coasters they had been getting up to that point, so I'm sure Cedar Fair will not be eager to add a big new coaster anytime soon. But eventually that time will come, and for the 2024 season, I'm guessing Knott's will be getting the next generation of the RMC Raptor. Because of the park's high attendance, I'm guessing this will be the single rail version with the 2 across seating to increase capacity. Knott's likes to go big with its rides, and I think an upscale Raptor model would give them the hyper-style coaster that they want in a more compact footprint. I have this coming 5 years from now, so I'm sure we'll learn a lot more about what RMC can do with their single rail model in the years to come. Up the coast, California's Great America is enjoying their new for 2018 RMC Raptor Railblazer. By all accounts, it seems like Cedar Fair is interested in building this park up. It went 12 years between getting their Wild Mouse to Gold Striker, and since 2013 they've seen the renovation of their stand-up coaster into a floorless and the addition of Railblazer, and also the rumor that Cedar Fair wants to install a B&M Hyper here. That would be an incredible addition since there's no good Hypers in the US west of Chicago. Originally the Hyper was supposed to be for 2020, but there was a snag in getting the permits, so I think they may be targeting 2021 for this coaster. Let's take a look at some of the less fortunate Cedar Fair parks, starting with Valley Fair. These smaller parks are extremely hard to predict a timeline for because there's no pattern for when they can expect a new coaster. Valley Fair hasn't received a thrill coaster since Renegade in 2007, so who really knows when the next one is coming? So let's just start with looking for the gap in this park. They have a good Woody, they have a launched and inverted coaster, a Hyper, but what they're missing is a good quality looping coaster. A B&M inverted coaster makes a lot of sense here, but maybe Cedar Fair doesn't want to pour that big of an investment into this park. Perhaps an infinity coaster would make more sense. Monster at Adventureland cost about $9 million, while Banshee at Kings Island cost $24 million. An infinity coaster would fill a gap and it would not break the bank, and it could be an investment that Cedar Fair could justify for Valley Fair. I also could easily see this park getting an RMC Raptor. I have no idea when this could happen, but I'll put 2023 as the possible opening year. Next up is Dorney Park, and this is one of those weird situations where their newest coaster edition has already been removed. Stinger was added in 2012 and removed after the 2017 season. So now their newest coaster is the relocated Intimate Impulse coaster Possessed, and that was back in 2008. This park does not have the best attendance, so Cedar Fair hasn't seen much of a need for a big investment after 2005. But there are thrilling options for this park that wouldn't break the bank. So what can a smaller park with lower attendance receive that won't break the bank? I think this is a prime contender for an RMC Raptor. Even if it's just a single rail model or even a clone of the existing Raptors. This would fit nicely on Stinger's old plot of land. I mean, after all, Stinger was relocated from California's Great America, and the coaster that now stands on that plot of land at CGA is an RMC Raptor. I think this is just the coaster that Dorney Park needs, and it could come sooner rather than later. Like I said before, when a park removes a coaster, they seem to replace it with another one pretty quickly. But Dorney Park is a hard park to make a prediction for, so I'm going to go with 2022 for their new Raptor. Worlds of Fun is another often neglected park by Cedar Fair. Their last coaster came in 2009, but it was a nice addition in Prowler. But still, 10 years and no new coaster, and there doesn't seem to be any rumor that one may be coming in the future. They have a nice collection of existing rides to keep people happy, but they also have a ton of room for expansion. The landmass surrounding the park is amazing to see, and they're anything but landlocked. All that being said, I think we could be looking at a small footprint relocated ride. Worlds of Fun is missing a launch coaster, and there have been rumors surrounding the removal and relocation of Cedar Point's Wicked Twister, so I'm going to predict that for the 2022 season, Wicked Twister will find a new home at Worlds of Fun. The saddest Cedar Fair park is Michigan's Adventure, but I think their next coaster will in fact come in 2020, Bench the Ride. It will be hard to top their RMC trash can from 2018, or their major 2017 edition, the Drinking Fountain Experience. Shivering Timbers was a major addition in 1998, and they got a family coaster and a Wild Mouse the next year. Then they got Geauga Lake's SLC in 2008. 11 years, no new addition, not even another relocated ride. I think this park is a prime candidate to convert one of their 3 wooden coasters into an RMC hybrid. And the obvious choice would be Wolverine Wildcat. It's not the tallest ride, but the layout seems to have good RMC potential, and with the other Woodies in the park, it seems like this makes a lot of sense. Now there's one thing that's well known about Michigan's Adventure. Although it's seen to the coaster community as a sad park, it's a very profitable park for Cedar Fair, so as long as this is the case, there's no pressing need for a major new investment. But eventually this is going to happen, and the emergence of RMC has given these theme park chains a reasonably priced option to add a major thrill ride, whether it's an Iron Horse conversion, or a ground-up Woody, or a single rail coaster. I think this could come in 2022. So that's going to do it for the major Cedar Fair parks. I hope you enjoyed this video, and most people thought that Cedar Point was going to get a new coaster for 2020 since the park is celebrating its 150th anniversary. This is seeming less and less likely since we're not hearing reports of land clearing or any other work done at this point, which makes it seem like a major new coaster for 2020 is unlikely. Cedar Point may have something different queued up for their 150th anniversary that doesn't involve a major new coaster. And honestly, it makes sense because they just got two major additions, Valraven and Steel Vengeance, in 2 of the last 3 years. I think they may be looking at 2021 for their next major coaster, and they could go one of 2 ways. Will they go for a record-breaking coaster once again and shoot for the 500-foot mark? If so, maybe they'll be waiting for RMC to give them the green light for the T-Rex model, which the company has stated can go over 500 feet. I'm going to go a different direction on this one. I think they may be looking at GCI to build one of those dueling inverted wooden coasters. They really need another true wooden coaster, and the dueling aspect would increase capacity and add excitement, and give Cedar Point something to brag about. I believe Cedar Point can find the land to do this if they removed Cedar Creek Mine Ride and also used some of the old Dinosaurs Alive land on the island where Millennium Force's overbanks are. The only thing that scares me away from this is the fact that the inverting wooden coaster is very similar to Steel Vengeance. But just about any coaster that Cedar Point could add is similar to another coaster already in the park. This is unlikely, but I will throw it out there anyway. I could see them hiring Gerstlauer to build an infinity coaster to break the Smiler's inversion record. It wouldn't take up too much space, and it could be the major record breaker the park is always looking for. One thing I wanted to do here is spread these additions over the next 5 years to account for the realistic amount of coasters Cedar Fair might add to a park in any given year. I only have one coaster coming to the chain in 2020, that's Kings Island's Giga. If you look at 2012 when they added Leviathan, the only other coaster project was to relocate Stinger to Dorney Park. And in 2015, when they added Fury, the only other coaster project was to convert Mantis into a floorless coaster, Rougarou. So it makes sense that the 2020 Giga will probably be the only thing they do unless they also decide to turn Carowind's Vortex into a floorless coaster or something else along those lines. In 2021, I have 3 coasters coming to the chain. This would be the Great America B&M Hyper, King's Dominion Infinity Coaster, and Cedar Point Inverting GCI. For 2022, I also have 3 new coasters, all for their smaller parks. This is the relocation of Wicked Twister to Worlds of Fun, the RMC Raptor for Dorney Park, and the RMC conversion of Wolverine Wildcat for Michigan's Adventure. I also have 3 new coasters for 2023 with the RMC conversion of Canada's Wonderland's Mindbuster, also Carowind's GCI, and Valleyfair's Infinity Coaster. I only have 1 new addition in store for 2024, and that's Knott's upscale, higher capacity RMC single rail coaster. Though by this point we could see some of these parks like Cedar Point or Kings Island receiving yet another coaster as well. If you couldn't tell by now, this is basically speculation, but with some careful consideration for the manufacturers that Cedar Fair has recently done business with, and the timeline that some of these parks seem to be on for new coasters, and also considering the gaps in these parks' lineups. So let me know what you think in the comments below. If there's anything you strongly agree or disagree with, I'd like to hear it. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next time.